that I thought she would have a hard sell getting our courthouse. And she said, we'll see. I thought she had to sell the seat on the idea. I wasn't thinking that all she had to do was get 3 commissioners. And here was the 3 commissioners that is in here that sat on their board.
Who are they?
Eddie Holbrook and Joe Boggs and Mary Acker. And on this 8-minute DVD, Mary Acker and Joe Boggs endorsed it. And Eddie Holbrook also, as on the testimony, endorses it for the community college. I'll be happy to bring over to see this and I can say, I'll make you.
law.
Well, no, it's not, because I have been to the Institute of Government, Chapel Hill.
What,
And according to Dr. Stephen and Dr. Stevens and Dr. Clinton Bell, it's not. And they would have to get 10% off the pay before it would be against the law. But it is a conflict of interest, and it is a violation of those terms. And I talked to David Deere about this last fall, and I said, David, I have a problem when you sit on this board. And he said, I'm not voting. And I said, well, if I have a problem in Destination Cleveland County, I'm going to go to the Chief Operating Officer here in Cleveland County. And that would be you. And if you're sitting on that board, I'm going to know right off the bat that you've got a vested interest here. And and the same thing with the city. Rick Howell negotiated the state theater, the FLIG. He negotiated those terms that gave them the $500,000. So in my mind, he was negotiating with himself. If he's a sitting board member, that he was negotiating with himself. So 2 weeks ago, I went to the county commissioners meeting, and I said to them then, I said, I have a problem with this because I think this is a conflict of interest. And I said to David, I said, you sit on their board with voting rights. And I said to the 3 commissioners, Mary Acker happened to not be there that night, so I was thinking to Joe Boggs and Eddie Holbrook. I said, you sat on their planning task force that made their 5-year plan. And I said, you folks cannot sit on their committees and on their boards and negotiate our money and our buildings. It's a conflict of interest and it erodes trust. And how unfortunate for us as a people if in the final analysis that we do achieve publicity and prosperity at the expense of honor and trust. So this is the point where we are now, is the DCC is waiting for an answer from the board about whether they're going to allow them to make the Earl Scruggs Center into our courthouse. And this is what I want to say about that. I would not think that most of the citizens would want that courthouse to be called the Earl Scruggs Center, and it doesn't sound like it's for all the people. And I tried to call the commissioner's attention to, on page 20, and the yellow pages of our phone book, there's a picture of the Swiftly Law Firm. And it's a very distinguished photograph. They're standing out in front of our courthouse, our old courthouse. And I looked at that picture and I thought, now how different would this be if they were standing out in front of the Earl Scruggs Center? And I think they probably would not have had photographs there. And it's the same thing as if we suddenly changed our White House and decided to call it the George Bush Center. Even if it still had the Lincoln bedroom and it still had presidential china, somehow it wouldn't belong to the people anymore. And I made this point that just because John Philip Sousa is from Washington, D.C., and if they wanted to do a museum for him, they wouldn't give him our Capitol building. They'd go find a building for a museum. This building is the center of our town. It is the heart of our county. It is the point from which all other points are measured. It belongs to all the people. It should be used for the people. It should never be used for one person's name. And I can tell you, when I start looking at the bottom line here, I think it's not that we're waxing nostalgic about the Navy son come home to put his name on the building. And we're not waxing nostalgic about the county that loves him, that wants his name on the building. I think that it is a business proposition on both sides. I think that we are using his name as a hook to steer the tourists off of Highway 74 to come into our county. I think that whether the paper says give or not, if you're giving something, it's an unconditional gift. If you've got to have say-so, or you've got to get rewards, like from the sales of souvenirs, that's not a gift. Let's call it what it is. It is either a lease or a license. It's not a gift. So I think it's a business deal. And I think this is where the whole thing went wrong. They looked at this, and they say, there's some chairs back there, guys, if you want to see it. They're in that little room behind. I think they look at this, and they said, if we can use this as a hook, this will get people in over to Shelby. We're going to get all these busloads of people for this tourism, and then our economy is going to thrive. So they do an economic impact study, and they have the Royal School of Management over at Garden Web conduct this. And they somehow don't get it finished, so DCC finishes it themselves. And so they come up with this idea that in the next 10 years, that we're going to have an impact of $204+ million from these two venues, about the people coming here and going to restaurants, stores, and the hotels. And if you want to break this down, that's $20.4 million a year. That is 500 people spending $117.82 a day, 365 days a year, for 10 years to get here. It's not going to happen. And so even if they said less than that, you still have got to look at this as it's a long shot for whatever economic impact that you would get. So you're looking that now that the Earl Scruggs camp split with the Don Gibson camp, and Don Gibson had to go to another building, that added $2.2 million to what they needed. So now, according to their brochure, we're up to about $7 million. And when they said the paper a week before last, they said $7 million, and it looked like to me that they were talking about $7 million just for the courthouse. But however, they're needing about $7 million. And that includes the $1.5 million that the county's going to kick in, to refurbish the building. So now they're going to look at grants, and they're going to look at individuals. There are individuals here in town who are throwing money at this. Some of them some right hefty amounts to do it. And there's also, on the back of this, frequently asked questions, how much should we pledge? Each pledge will be carefully considered and evaluated. A volunteer will contact you to arrange an appointment to answer your questions and to discuss your 5-year investment in this as individuals. On the back, it says, will we receive recognition for our investment? And it says yes. At the conclusion of this is the campaign they're calling this, their sales campaign, Rhythm and Roots, that an honor roll of investors will be published, and special recognition appropriate to a donor level will be designated at the Earl Scruggs Center and at the Don Gibson Center in honor of all who are sponsoring this extraordinary 5-year program. Naming opportunities are available. And I go, wait a minute, this sounds like NASCAR. It's the next Shell Cup, and the next time you turn around, it's the Sprint Cup, and whoever throws enough money at it next year can get their name on it. And I thought, it sounds like Bank of America. It was there at the stadium last time you turned around. So I write the commissioners a little note, and I say, tell me something. This is what this sounds like. Naming opportunities, indeed. And I said, this sounds like football stadiums. And it sounds like, the Lincoln bedroom for sale. How much is our heritage and our history and our public buildings worth? What they're going to get for it. So, anyway, this is where we are. But I did hear them say at Don Gibson Theater that they were going to give everybody an opportunity to name, because on the back of the seats they were going to sell brass plaques. That was because so even the lowest person, I guess, can scrape together enough dollars to get the name on the back of a plaque. But it bothers me, naming opportunities on our courthouse, because that just, it's not up for sale. It reminds me, and I know Hal and I discussed this, it reminded me of Jesus when they were auctioning for his clothes. I mean, I know that's pretty much of a strong analogy, but this, to me, is sacred ground. This museum and the artifacts that are in it belong to all of us. The poorest person in this county can point to that museum and say, that is mine. My history is there. That is my legacy. And the people who left this stuff to the museum, that was part of their life. And this is all we have left of them. This was their legacy that they left it. And this is our torch to carry and to preserve and pass down to a next generation. Not to store away 90% or whatever, so that we can sell Earl Scruggs souvenirs and bring it out once in a while. So this is where we are now as we're looking at how can we get these commissioners to open their eyes and know that we want to speak as a group. We haven't had a voice. I've tried to have them do what I'm doing tonight. They should be up here. Do it then. I have tried to get the newspaper. For some reason, the newspaper has been silent. The newspaper has shut down the thread on the chat room where people are talking to each other and saying that they've had complaints, that there's too many lines discussing the same subject. And a week ago, Sunday, February 10th, in the newspaper, they did a 4-page spread, and they asked DCC some questions. I wish I could have asked them because I still have some. And they said in their editorial, a whole-page editorial, enough rebuttal. This project will be held in this building. Now, the county commissioners hadn't decided that yet, so I don't know if the newspaper can. And they said the Debbie Downer voices can no longer have a day, the day in Cleveland County. And now, if you Google Debbie Downer, you will see that this is a character on Saturday Night Live. And it's somebody that's always down in the mouth and negative. The Debbie Downer negative voices can no longer have a say. Yet I looked back at an article in the Star, and it was in August 2006. That article says about courage. And it says how, for us to have the courage to stand up and shoot straight, and be willing to stand up for what we believe in, and to not worry about dissension. Yet this is a total about turn when they're saying that enough, we've heard enough, go sit down in your corner. So I started looking at this, and we felt like we didn't have a voice with the commissioners, we don't have a voice with DCC, we don't have a voice with the newspaper. Somewhere we're going to have to be able to have a say. And I don't know what we can do to get on forward. And another thing that I'm looking at, as I'm looking down the road, if we don't find our voice now, what will happen down the road when they own our building? That I thought she would have a hard sell getting our courthouse, and she said, "We'll see." I thought she had to sell the seat on the idea. I wasn't thinking about all she had to do was get 3 commissioners. And here was the 3 commissioners that is in here that sat on their board.
Who are the 2?
Eddie Holbrook and Joe Boggs and Mary Acker. And on this 8-minute DVD, Mary Acker and Joe Boggs endorsed it. And Eddie Holbrook also, as on the testimony, endorses it for the community college. I'll be happy to bring her to see this another day. I'll make you.
law.
Well, no, it's not, because I have been to the Institute of Government, Chapel Hill.
What,
And according to Dr. Stephen and Dr. Clinton Bell, it's not. And they would have to get 10% off the pay before it would be against the law. But it is a conflict of interest, and it is a violation of the And I talked to David Deere about this last fall, and I said, David, I have a problem when you sit on this poll. And he said, I'm not voting. And I said, well, if I have a problem in Destination Cleveland County, I'm going to go to the Chief Operating Officer here in Cleveland County. And that was